Okay. Oh, here she is. Okay, perfect. Okay. And let's do another page of terms, and then we're gonna go beyond that, all right? Okay, just pass these around. So it's great to have you. Join us.
Nice to meet you. Yes. Thank you.
Okay.
Two of them or one?
One, just one.
Okay.
Yeah, this is the old ones I have.
No,
No, it's just no.
Can I promote it? Mazal, can I promote it?
I don't see on any books. I got my own book.
Oh, they just put it.
Okay.
They did.
All righty.
Yeah. They just.
So new terms, not new, some of it you've heard. We have more.
I'll get it. I'll bring it.
Leave a few copies there.
Because I don't know.
Rabbi, the temperature is good, right? Yeah.
Okay,
How's your mom?
let's review some of the terms.
Yeah. Like that.
Okay, so we're going to touch on the Az Yashir. We're going to touch on the song that we sang after the splitting of the sea, after the experience of the splitting of the sea. The reason we're going to touch on that is because it really establishes the foundation of the next stage of our redemption, next stage of our development as a people. So we're doing it in order to understand more of who we are, and then we're going to step very quickly into the next couple of parashiot, where we're going to focus on some of the core halachot, some of the core mitzvot that also set an important platform. We're going to look at those mitzvot, God willing, from a very broad point of view and a fundamental point of view, both wide and narrow. All right. So that's the plan. Today we're going to focus on terms and parts of the Az Yashir. We'll see how far we get, and then we're going to move into the mitzvot in Parashat Yitro and Parashat Mishpatim. Right, this week and next week. Okay, beautiful. Okay, some of these terms we know. Some of these terms we know. What does the term Ruach HaKodesh mean? What does the term Ruach HaKodesh mean? What?
You're cheating.
Right. What does it mean? How are you? See you. I'm sick.
Here, maybe your God's word, your God's word.
Right, so Ruach HaKodesh, give it to me more. Hey, is it accessible by all? Accessible by all, yes. Yes, Rachel, right? It's accessible by all. Beautiful. What enables it? What enables it?
Feeling connected to God.
What's that?
Feeling a close connection to God.
So that's one of the things that'll come with it. What enables it? We said last time, we talked about Chokhmah, right? We talked about this a few times. Chokhmah being knowing a lot about a lot, right? Chokhmah, wisdom, a lot about a lot, with the ability to move comfortably between all different areas. Good. Step up, binah, understanding, discernment, to know a lot about a lot, and therefore to be able to tease out the subtle differences between overwhelmingly similar things. Okay? I see, we're going to see it now. We'll see it in the Az Yashir. We're going to talk about some subtleties in the language that take us from Chokhmah, right? Looking at it from a wide lens, multiple areas of knowledge perspective, to then being able to narrow it down and focus on very subtle differences. Right? Good. That yields what, Rama? That yields da'at, which is that relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Now, when we have Chokhmah plus Binah plus da'at, it yields
HaKodesh.
Ruach HaKodesh. Beautiful. It yields Ruach HaKodesh. So Ruach HaKodesh literally means that everybody in this room can be sitting someplace with a book open or not, having studied in a mode of study, in a zone of ongoing study, and your head is going to be opened up, and I'm going to embarrass somebody in a minute with this, but well, in a minute, your head is going to be opened up with insights that are new and your own, and so on. Vivian, okay? What a surprise, right? With insights that are new and your own. 1 second. That we say is a combination, is a function of the work that you did, Chokhmah, Binah, Da'at, right? I'm creating that relationship. Within that place now, I can discover. Ruach HaKodesh is discovery. It's a place of discovery. Like when you commit to another human being, right? When you commit your heart to another human being, what are you doing? You're committing to learning more about the person perpetually. You're committing to Chokhmah and Binah, to knowledge and understanding and discernment related to that person forever. Whether it's a spouse, whether it's a parent, it's a child, that's what we commit to. Now, as a result of that, we end up in a place of discovery where we can now charter new ground. Okay, I don't want to offend two of the top students in this room, but I'm going to put Rachel in the same category. Okay, she's building in the same way. She's discovering. She's initiating. Completely different than Vivian. Completely different. But she's discovering. She's initiating. That's where we are. That's what Ruach HaKodesh enables. So who is it available to? It's available to everybody. Yeah? How do I get there? How do you get there? It's hard work. How do you get there? You take all those colored things. You take all those colored things, right? All the colored things, all the yellow sticky things, right? You take those things and you go back at them and back at them and back at them and back at them. And Ruach HaKodesh then becomes your playground. And that's what you want. Because it's available to me. I'm stepping beyond where most people are hanging around. And I'm celebrating this intellectual discovery. It almost doesn't get better than that. Almost doesn't get better than that. And you'll see in the great rabbis and female thinkers, you'll see their enthusiasm and how they'll stand up and cheer, in a sense, when they're expressing that new area of intellectual discovery. Good? So that's Ruach HaKodesh. Good? Off limits to anybody? No. It's accessible to everybody. Okay? Remember, just to qualify one more step, we're doing this all in the context of the splitting of the sea, because we want to understand what these things are forever, and we want to understand how to relate to them in terms of our experience then, and therefore how we can relate to the 10 Commandments, and therefore how we can relate to the stuff that followed. Good. What's the next level? We talked about this when we talked about Moshe Rabbeinu by the fire with the burning in the bush, not burning in the bush. What did we call it? We called it mar'eh. Right, Mary? What's a mar'eh? You got the cheat sheet right in front of you there. New page. Look at only the new page. Stick with me on the new page. Mar'eh, right? It's a vision that what? What is a mar'eh?
Is addressed by one's imaginative capacity.
Right. It's only addressed by what? It's only addressed by what, Mary? By my imagination. So flesh it out. Tell me how it works. Tell me how it works. You see a vision. Now what do you want to do? Huh? You interpret it. Very good. Very good word. So is it clear to me what the message is? No, the message is not clear. So what right do I have to interpret that message and to discuss it and to publicly proclaim it? What right do I have to do that? Beautiful. You have Ruach HaKodesh. Excellent. You have Ruach HaKodesh. You're already in a different place, right? You have the learning. You have the binah, the discernment. You have a certain level of relationship with God. Therefore, you have some training. Therefore, your imagination is going to make certain assumptions that are very well grounded. Okay? And this is where it stops for most prophets.
In the section near Yahweh, Hashem shows him the Matel Shaked. Matel Shaked, is that a conversation in which we see the Matel?
I can't hear you well. Say it again. I'm sorry.
So in
The air conditioner.
in Jeremiah, there's a whole segment where Hashem appears to Yirmiyahu and he asks, what do you see in your vision? So he says, I see a staff with a branch of the Shaked on the grill.
Yep.
So is that whole conversation we're talking about now, what we're talking about it? Was that a Maled in that?
What do you want to say?
From what you're telling right now, yes.
I would say yes. Good. So tell me.
He asked him to interpret it.
The subjectivity part is critical.
He asked him, goes, oh, that means this can happen, and then the whole thing with the pot. He said, fine.
Beautiful. So who's being called out with the Mad'eh? Who's being called out with the Mad'eh? The Yirmiyah, right? He's being called out. The prophet is being called out. Who's setting the tone? Who's establishing the message? No, you just stop.
What you see,
And-
and good, you so well. And then he explains to him what it means also.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Very good.
That's why I'm asking in that segment, what is it exactly?
So what do you want to tell me? What
It
is it?
sounds like a conversation.
It's a conversation.
It's almost like, okay, what is your imagination telling you? Good, but he provides some of it.
So it goes like this. I'm going to ask you a question in different ways. It's a very strong question. I'm going to ask it a different way. If Yirmiyah explained it differently, would HaKadosh Baruch Hu have answered differently? Stop, think a second. Don't answer yet.
Said earlier that you're, yes.
Yes. And the
According to
answer
what
is
you said,
yes.
Yes.
And the answer is yes.
But then, what about the prophecy?
What about it?
What is,
So what's the relationship? You said it 3 or 4 weeks ago in one of the classes. You said it. Well, you said it. You may not remember. I remember. What is the relationship between God and the tzaddik? So explain it.
So that means that his interpretation would have actually brought about its reality.
Right. So who determines the reality? The prophet does. Beautiful. Yep, right. Beautiful. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu will put something out there. Who's gonna nail it down? The person. Very good. So the person has fantastic latitude and power. Now, so now you're gonna come back and say, well, what do you mean? Anybody can say whatever they want and determine whatever they want? No. You have to be the right person. How are you the right person? Well, you have that knowledge, right? Male and female. We have some of the greatest prophets were women. We have that knowledge. We've gone beyond the knowledge to be able to connect different areas of knowledge very comfortably and move like this. That's a very big step, right? We've moved beyond that to have the confidence, the clarity, to find those little subtle things, call them out, and declare a difference between them. And by the way, does anybody have to agree with you on that difference?
No.
The answer is no, as long as it's in the general context of Torah. So you're talking about like an kivyachol, so to speak. It's not literally this, of course, but you're talking about like an extension, like a prime student of God, right? So that prime student is going to interpret, and he's going to create new, yeah, and that's the latitude, and that's the system, and that's very exciting. Good, Lori. So it's not that
Why people go to holy. It's a very holy.
100%.
Even rabbis. because
There's
some
no
older rabbis
question.
that are very-
There's absolutely no question, Rama. You're 100% right. That different people have different levels of understanding of what's going on in the world. There's just no doubt about it. There's just, you can't ignore it. The same way a psychologist, someone trained in a certain area for X number of years, right, is going to understand the client better than maybe someone who didn't get that training, right? Not deal, right? Someone who has this level of knowledge is going to understand the world better. There's no doubt about it. In fact, one of the things that during our recent trip, Ammar, who was the former Rishon LeZion, he was the chief rabbi for 10 years, and now he's the chief rabbi of Jerusalem. He lives across the street from my daughter, and he's in their shul. He's a giant of the generation. And he opened up on Shabbat, and he spoke about his perspective on what's going on. And it was pretty fantastic. And he spoke about the fact that since the Jewish people came back to the land of Israel, there has been a harsh reality that is a harsh reality described in the prophets that we never had before. The harshness of the good and the harshness, in quotation marks, of good and the harshness of the opposite. It's a time of remarkable miracles, and it's a time of almost impossible tests. I would say, just to divert for a minute, my takeaway from my recent trip is it's the best the country's ever been and the absolute unquestionable worst that it's ever been. It has never been better and it's never been worse. There's never been more unity. There has never been more pain, and the level of pain is just unbearable. It's unimaginable. And it's so multi-tiered. It's so multi-tiered. It's almost endless. 40,000 families from the north out of their homes. When will they ever go home? Nobody knows if they're going home, period. And there's no fighting in the north. How many thousands of young men mostly young men, but women as well, in hospitals, permanently maimed, permanently losing a limb, permanent. Do we have thousands of businesses that are closed? People can't feed their families. It has never been worse. And if anybody thinks it's getting better, they're in a dreamland someplace, because it is as bad as it could be. And at the same time, it's as remarkable as it could be. People were never more united. They were never more religious. There's probably more religious observance in the state of Israel today than ever in our history since 3,000 years ago. Probably more understanding, probably more mutuality, probably greater sense of arevut. So I was talking to the boys in the classes this morning about it. I just couldn't stop crying. They asked me what. I couldn't stop crying because you're in both. You're in both. And so this is what we go to our great rabbis to help us understand. He was able to rip the Band-Aid off and to say something that is kind of obvious, right? He said that we're at a time now where the overt hand of God is extremely pronounced, is extremely aggressive. And this is where we are. And it's a huge call to action. It's a huge sacrifice, huge test. You see these children going to war, and it doesn't make, nothing makes any sense here. And if anybody tells you it's better, they're lying. They're simply lying. It is not better. It is not better. It is not better. So, what do we need to do? By the way, just to finish this sidebar, my apologies. We better be changing. I'm just saying, we better be changing. We can't look at the most horrific Jewish experience in the last 85 years and go on about our day, opening the news 10 times and making a trip to Israel, which are all very important. We have to be learning more Torah, doing more mitzvot, doing more chesed. Otherwise, what's going on here? What is really going on here? If there's not a massive transformation in each of us, then what world are we living in? I was telling them that there's this gorgeous young man in the synagogue, tall, handsome, blue eyes. He walks in with this beautiful little boy, copy paste, gorgeous little boy. And he walks in with a massive gun in Shabbat, and then followed by three of these beautiful little girls, each one done up with the bows and the this and the that and the that. Each one, gorgeous children, gorgeous. So I asked, I said, who's this guy? He moved to the area 3-4 years ago, and he's very, very frustrated and angry. What is he frustrated and angry about? That his reserve unit hasn't been called up yet. Crazy. He has these 4 gorgeous gems. What's going on here? What's going on here? He feels he has a responsibility. So we have to plug into that somehow. I'll tell you one other quick story. When we went to the Sefer Torah dedication, we went one night to 10 families in the community, including Rabbi Tobias from here, dedicated Sefer Torah in the Bet El Army base. It's the largest one in the country. Are you familiar with it?
I think my son and
You guys. Oh, yeah.
One of the names?
Maybe
Oh,
the cows.
yeah.
Maybe, I didn't see
I
the
don't
name.
know. I didn't see it all. Anyway, 6,000 soldiers there. There's a guy there with a kippah on, very handsome, tall man, maybe in his 50s. And, he sees I'm standing on the side while they're dancing, and I'm not dancing because I couldn't reconcile my emotions. I couldn't do it. It took me a long time to move into the circle because I was having a very difficult time. So he walked over to me. He tells me, I have 6 kids. There's a kippah on his head, religious guy. I have 6 kids. Oh, beautiful. I said, why? He says, I left October 7th. Hasn't been home since October 7th. So I haven't home. He said, I'm going home tomorrow for a couple of hours because one of my daughters has her bat mitzvah. Going home for a couple of hours. Now, he wasn't speaking negatively or sadly or with any anger. He wasn't. And he was the guy dancing in the circle more than me. So they get it better than we get it. They definitely understand it better than we understand it. They have their roles to play. Nobody knows where this is going, but we got to know something. Maybe you would say, maybe the War of Independence was on this level, maybe. But the levels and levels of turmoil they're unfathomable. You can't take it all in. It's impossible.
Do you
So
think that it's level of Ruach HaKodesh somehow that he's so, I'm wondering, I just remember a few weeks ago, you were saying how you were so, you were just saying again, he was so angry about his young boys going in and fighting. And now they are just so strong-willed and so sure about their job and their mission. Maybe they've got some.
maybe they do. Listen, we know that Avirat Yisrael Nachkima, we say, the air of the land of Israel gives people added wisdom. And I have to make another trip. I was telling Jeremy and my children I have to make another trip because I knew that I wasn't there, and I needed to re-hug my children, my grandchildren, and re-anchor my learning. And that was my focus on the trip, my grandchildren and my learning. I went back to my kollel, I did my thing. I was very, very happy. I needed that. But to your point, this is so overwhelming and so catastrophic in the good and the bad that, I need to go back and to go at it further. And and all of us need to do everything we can. And while we're here, what we need to be doing is we need to be changing and we need to be growing. And we need to seek out more of these great rabbis and getting their insights because they're very helpful because they have the Ruach HaKodesh and more, some of them, and they can give us great insight. Okay, sorry for the side point. Okay. Mara'eh plus seichel. What do we got on that? Talk about this with the fire in the bush. What is mar'eh plus sechel? What does it mean?
Yeah, he used his intellect to help interpret.
Excellent. So what happens, Rama? So what happens in the first case versus the second case? In the first case, we only talked about the application of imagination. In the second case, we're talking about imagination and intellect, meaning what?
Interpretation.
Interpretation, good, with my intellectual skills, good. So why couldn't the person in case A do that? Why couldn't he do that? Or she? Why, Frida?
I was gonna say, he wasn't ready, he didn't understand.
He wasn't ready. Okay, he wasn't ready. Yeah. So he hadn't built himself or she to a point where their intellect can engage the imagination. That's another step. So how do we get to that step? How do we get to that step? More learning, more human involvement. What did Yitro tell his son-in-law? What did he tell him? What did he tell him? Yeah, but what did he tell him about his own role? Yeah, Navotibo, why? Why? He told him you're doing what? What does he tell Moshe Rabbeinu?
Making people stand all day.
Great. And doing what? Because he was doing what? He was a judge and he was a teacher, right? He was a judge and he was a teacher. What was the problem with that? Why does Yitro tell him you can't continue to do both? Okay, we'll work out a better appointment system so they won't stand all day. What was the problem? What does Yitro get? Moshe Rabbeinu tells him later on, you have been our eyes in the desert. How is he their eyes? What do you think?
Like you said, to be the judge
And the teacher.
maybe the judge is like just fact,
And
teacher, emotion, interpretation.
Compassion.
fantastic. You can't be a judge and a teacher. They're absolutely antithetical. Forget about the practical thing, the sad. You can't do it. And he tells Moshe Rabbeinu, oh, you're the leader? You're the guy that has to take these people from being slaves, from an absolute inability to think of anything, certainly not to think of an ultimate God. You're going to take them? Remember, their parents, their grandparents, their great-grandparents were all slaves. They can't ever be anything other than a slave, right? Look at, it's 200 years since African Americans were freed, right? 200 and some odd years. They're still in so much pain, right? They're still in so much pain, right? You're going to take these people who were subjected to horrific conditions and you're going to change them, and you think you're going to do that as a judge and the teacher? It can't work, you know? And he tells him, you want to build your people, you have to be just a teacher and appoint judges. Tell me why, Mary. Why is one antithetical to the other? Build on Rama's point. Why is one the opposite of the other? What's the difference? What does a judge do? What is it?
He has to remove himself. And
Huh?
can't be no he has to be, he can't be attached.
Beautiful. He has to remove himself, and he's detached, and he's emotionally detached. Excellent. And
Give a ruling.
Give a ruling.
and he has to give a ruling. Right? What is the teacher?
Just teachers.
Is the exact opposite. A teacher
Listens
will
to
almost
everything.
never judge a student, right? What's the paradigm in education? Right? Rabbi Tala told me when I started teaching in Flatbush a very long time ago. He says, you want to look at the results of your efforts? Look at them in 20 years. He said, in teaching, you look at it in the context of a generation. How did this person grow? Oh, you impacted that person's life for years 1, 3, 5, and 10. Okay, now look 10 years after that and see where that person is, who he or she became, and now you'll know how good your efforts were. That's the antithesis of a judge, right? Antithesis of the judge is, tell me what you got. I'm not making a commitment to you. In fact, I can't make an emotional commitment to you. I'm going to be as detached, as in and out, as cold as possible. So what does Yitro tell him? You can't be both. And you should be the teacher. And Yitro enables him, right? Most of us do that for our son-in-laws, right? We should remind them of that, right? That without their father-in-law, that's the same. But Yitro really builds him. He really builds him. Maybe that's also part of the reason that, the parasha is named after him and so on, because our leader may not have been the leader that he is and needed to be without Yitro's insight. Okay, so
A silly thought came to mind also, like.
what's that?
I know that schools always have trouble finding people to discipline the minyan or discipline the dress code, because when the kids see them in that light, it's hard
That's right.
for them to learn from them in a classroom environment.
That's exactly right. It's very,
It
it's,
makes sense.
that's right. The disciplinarian thing. Hi, Sully, how are you? Thanks again for your beautiful hospitality. Thank you. You're the best.
Thank you,
Thank
Sully.
you. Thank you very much. Yeah, that's why it's difficult. Exactly. Okay, so you reach a certain point. The imagination couples with the sechel. So join us. I know you're crazy busy. Good. So how can you do that? Again, go back to point one. Ruach HaKodesh. Connect the dots, right? The more the knowledge grows, the more the quick and easy access to knowledge is, the more a person moves to a point where he or she can apply sechel to mar'eh. Okay, so now we have Ruach HaKodesh, step up, mar'eh, step up, mar'eh plus sechel. Okay, good. Where are we on now in where the Jewish people were in terms of the splitting of the sea? We're not quite there yet. Okay, but we're at a pretty phenomenal place where someone has the capacity to see, to interpret through through dimion, through imagination, and then to apply some level of intellect to it. Now, we have to appreciate that the intellect that was applied at the splitting of the sea was very, very rudimentary. It was very raw. It was very young. It was very young because the Jewish people didn't understand God yet. They couldn't possibly. So again, if you're looking at this, as we said a couple of weeks ago, where this is the rollout, the program of this Geulah, this redemption, and all redemptions to come, then you look at maybe the last 70, 80 years of Jewish history, you look at it differently. We didn't have a splitting of the sea per se, but we've had other remarkable revelations that we understood on a certain level to build us to a certain level. And now we can apply more of, let's say, the intellect to the imagination, for example. Let's go a little bit further. What's the next stage?
But wait, can I ask you a question? Are you mainly talking about Moshe in this?
No, I'm talking about
Rising?
everybody.
Everybody?
Yeah,
So I mean, Bnei Israel just saw the 10 plagues.
they just saw the 10 plagues, right?
Okay, so would you call that enlightened vision?
We're going to call the 10 plagues shock and awe. We're going to call that shock and awe. Because we don't have, after the 10 plagues, we don't have a huge sign up by the Jewish people to say, we got it, we're in. We still don't really have that.
No. So,
We have it after this, and it lasts for how long?
right.
No, a minute, right? It lasts for a minute. So we're still building. And we're still working and chipping away hundreds of years of limitation. Okay, next, we combine the Ruach HaKodesh plus Mar'eh plus Sechel plus, what's the next one?
Son Elyon.
Ratzon Elyon, beautiful. What is Ratzon Elyon? What is Ratzon Elyon? Higher will. It's my higher will. What is it? The Ratzon Elyon is the ability to move beyond structured reason and intellect.
Sounds like you.
It sounds like?
Carl Jung.
I don't know him. I mean, I know him, but I know him, sorry, but I don't know him. Oh, he has 7 stages? Ah, you took it from here. You copied
It's
it.
very
Uh-huh.
where there's all these ideas that have nothing really to do with our everyday reality, but there's somewhere deep inside.
This has
That's some-
very good, Mazel, but this has everything to do without everything. It has everything. That's the difference. So let's see. He starts out, person starts out, right? Using the imagination only to interpret what he or she sees. Good. Moves on. Has that intellectual prowess and adaptability and flexibility, right? To apply it to the vision.
Would you say Hashem is directing him towards it, towards the vision?
No, I'm saying the person, is he directing him? Yeah, but the person is building himself. It's all about the person. It's all about what the person can achieve based on his or her.
So like
efforts.
Hashem is moving him maybe in that direction or
No,
being involved in it?
no.
He knows what Hashem wants. the
Right
person
brain,
knows what
left
Hashem
brain,
wants.
like logic and imagination, and those two halves are speaking to each other. 'Cause
You could put it
works
that way.
nicely- That works nicely with the splitting of the seed. The right brain and the left brain are constantly communicating.
Oh, that's
What's,
beautiful.
what's logical is telling what's illogical, and what's illogical is saying, no, this does exist, this doesn't exist, and when the two of them could communicate, you could get to a higher reality.
Very good, very good, very good. So I'm gonna just tweak what you said. I love the right left thing. It's beautiful. I'm gonna tweak it just a drop. What we say is that if we put the imagination here and the intellect here, we put the higher will here.
Right.
We put it above. Why? So
You're
now
using
go back to what
imagination
you said
intellect. I'm
and
saying-
reframe it. Huh?
You're saying imagination and intellect. I'm saying right brain and left brain. It's the same thing.
Very good.
I'm just saying there's an integration between the right part of the brain and the left part of the brain, between the imagination and intelligence. And those two are constantly, I think, communicating to make sense for the self of what they're seeing.
Very good.
Like the,
Very
like the
good.
bush.
They have the
Doesn't it
capacity
mean-
to.
doesn't it-
This is very important. The imagination and the intellect, sometimes people get stuck on the imagination side, right? That's not a low level person. That could be a very high level person. The person goes higher, he or she now can use both. You want to call it right, left? Beautiful.
The idea that both sides are in constant communication with each other.
That's not simple. Beautiful. We would call that what Vivian is describing as the step up. Ratzon Elyon,
That's
when
why
they're
I'm
in
bringing it
communication.
up now, if there
You could
is,
combine.
if there's a frequency of communication between the two sides, that's gonna take you to a
Excellent.
higher place.
Excellent.
You
Is
can't
that
get to-
natural?
You can't get to one with either one alone.
Perfect.
You need the two to be able to get to that.
You can't get to a super level with either one alone. You could get something and something and something, right?
That was no physical and spiritual
sounds
together
like,
needed to be,
Einstein's
that's was the
thoughts are-
Makantodah. That's all of this that I think you're taking us to is the importance of the integration of very often two opposites.
That's right. They can be seemingly opposite, right? So I have the ability, by the way, can everybody imagine?
Of course, you have an
You think so? Yeah? Not so sure.
No.
I mean, you have the
some
inherent-
people
You have the inherent ability
Some
to,
people, some.
Very active.
so everybody has it.
Incineration is over.
Okay, good. Good. Then we're doing something right. Okay, I don't know if it's too much or not, but we need it to be robust, right? We need that. Good. So now when I can apply my intellect to it and not kill it, I did something good, because what can the intellect often do to that expansive, imaginative thing?
Kill the whole
It can
thing.
kill it, right?
Right.
It can kill it. So what Vivian's talking about is a flow, right? There's a flow, beautiful. So in order to have that flow, I have to have a robust and strong and confident imaginative self. And then I have to do the same on the intellectual side. And then what am I gonna do? And the word is a hard word. I'm gonna agree. I'm gonna tell you from now. But I'm gonna step up to what you're calling this. I'm calling it this. And what does that extra step include? It includes an intuitive, non-intellectual sense, a greater than intellectual sense, which is
Inspiration.
Huh?
That doesn't feed into the intellect and imagination.
So we're gonna hold not. We're gonna hold that the Ratzon Elyon, the higher will is above it, beyond it. That's how we generally explain
Can
it.
I give a concrete
How would,
example?
but explain it your way.
Yeah, can I
Explain it
give a
your way.
concrete example? So Einstein, how did he come up with the theory of relativity? What he did was he completely destroyed the paradigm that we had about gravity. And what he did was he used a thought experiment, which he used his imagination. Imagine he was on a train and he was going at the speed of light. And he was saying, right now, if I were to see something, where would it appear? And then that's how he realized the whole time space, that really gravity is just, it's a curvature in the fabric of the universe. And he figured it all out from his imagination, but it wasn't like the Alma thinking, like, oh, imagine I'm only, and not like that. It was using, like what you were saying, the intellect to go up, and then he realized something that, wait, this explains so much. And he was thinking about Galileo, thinking about the moon, about the gravity, and all the things that go on in the universe.
Beautiful.
But
So
how, but what's
if
that
he
thought
was
now?
limited to his intellect, Mazal, it's a fantastic example. If he was limited to his intellect, would he have gotten there? Never.
With our limited perspective, can ever have us realize about the curvature of the earth and all of
That's
that
right.
is based on.
That's right. So he's
Never.
gotta step
Never.
out. He's gotta go with the imagination. That gets him in the door. He's gotta use his structure, discipline, rationale,
And
reason.
that's the mess.
That moves it to another level. It makes the lines more black and white, right? Not as gray, not as blurry, which is good. It means we're getting closer to God. We're seeing things more clearly, right? And then what are we doing? We're jumping outside it, but we're not, we're jumping up.
Yes.
We're jumping to a place where my reason can't take me because it's a new discovery. To your point, right? He discovered something new. He couldn't discover something new working in the framework that existed. He had to go outside it, right? So when you're at a certain point in prophecy, you've got to go outside. You've got to engage what we call the sechvi, the heartfelt intellect, which is an intellect that is robust enough to be courageous enough to go outside of itself to discover something new. That's what we're talking about.
A simple example is when you tell us read the pasuk as if you never read it before.
Right.
That's just like a, right?
Yeah,
Which is very, very hard to do, but
that's right.
you have to put away all your previous intellect and
That's right.
be like a 5-year-old reading it for the first time.
Open it up.
That's funny because a lot of great NASA like scientists, when they have to figure something out for, let's say, something on space, they go to kindergarten and go, okay, guys, build something.
Right.
And then the kids do.
Love it.
Yeah.
Because what happened to us
Yeah,
as
in the
we grow up
box.
is
You
that.
become cynical, right, limited.
He teaches us to stand up.
And then we lose what's so natural in us, and that's music. That's on any on, that's on any on.
So we describe it. What's on our young.
Kindergarten kids have-
That's based on Harambam. That's based on Haram. Huh? Right, yes.
Wait, repeat the Ratzon Elyon.
It's the, I guess, an inborn ability
It's
to,
an inborn ability, exactly, to move beyond, to intellectually, it's a little bit of a,
meaning to use.
but it's the best word we use. To intellectually move beyond reason and rationale. That's what it is. It means that you're going into another place. Like your example was perfect in terms of exploration and discovery and so on. Okay, let's do a couple more. My most favorite word. Next one. Aspecularia. By the way, I noticed when I was in the old city a couple of days ago, there's actually like a building that says Aspecularia on it. From the Rosh Hanaya, from the parking lot in the Jewish quarter. So what is Aspecularia again? Remember, the person started out with imagination. He or she moved up to imagination coupled with intellect. They moved up to imagination and intellect coupled with this license to build on what they had, but ignore it and discover, right?
It might be like the word like removal of doubt, like a, like safek, Aspaklaria, I'm trying to think why
Oh,
they made up that
Aspaklaria
word.
is a Greek word.
Oh, because I was hoping it meant like ace,
No,
and
it's
like
not Hebrew.
against Safek. In a
Okay.
place where you don't have.
I don't know.
Because if you start having doubts, then the
Well,
whole
that's
thing is
funny,
shot to
because
the,
it was
that's the pin in the balloon, once they have.
I love it. I don't know the source of the word.
Well, she said it's Greek, so.
It's Greek. Where did it come from? We use the
They
Greek
got
word.
it.
Marcel, the fact is that we use the Greek word is a big thing. So we should look into it
Like
further.
Nissan, you know, like
Yeah.
that, we still.
Yeah, we
those
still
words.
use it, so we should look at it further. Okay. So almost unlimited sight and understanding. So now the person is in another zone where they've utilized all those things that we have and jumped up. And then we have Aspaklaria Me'ira. Hard to say what it is further. It's further. It's an even greater X.
Would you say he's seeing,
Yeah. So,
he's seeing things that other people don't see?
yeah.
He's
Good.
able to see it.
And then there's Mitziut. And what is Mitziut? The last one? Huh?
Seeing God.
How God ways, seeing God's
So
ways.
what does that mean? That's very, very important. Mitziut, we say that Moshe Rabbeinu started out with Mar'eh on the first level, on the imagination level, and he gets all the way up to Mitziut. Nobody else did. He did, not yet. But he gets all the way up to Mitziut, right? What is this Mitziut or reality in English? What is it? It means there is no time lapse. There is no filter.
God's reality is your reality.
God's reality is your reality.
He
There is no
Fantastic.
time. God's, there is no space in
But
God's
God's
world.
space
There is
is
no
time.
mass, there is no matter.
And that's exactly where you are.
That becomes your reality.
That becomes your reality. Good?
Above space and time.
Huh?
Above space and time.
Above space and time.
Everything
Outside of it.
else has, like, imagine glass. There are different levels to glass. You have this pretty clear glass. I would call that Aspaklaria Me'ira. And then shades of tint, you know?
Yeah.
And, yeah,
Right.
until you get to remove the glasses from the glass.
That's right. Now, we touched on this once before briefly. Let's touch on it briefly one more time. When Moshe Rabbeinu sins, right? Why is it as,
Which sense?
when he was supposed to speak to the rock and he hits the rock? What was the problem? HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells him, you failed to sanctify me with this action. 1 second. It wasn't a great enough sanctification to hit the rock and get water for X millions of people?
So that was not the Mitziut of Hashem.
Why?
Hashem didn't want the people to see.
More. You're right there. Come on.
But
What
he's
is-
mirroring Hashem.
Huh?
He's mirroring
Right,
Hashem's
and he
ways.
didn't.
And then he did something so astronomical that Hashem would never do.
Why?
No,
Well, why did,
Hashem would speak, like he ordered, then order would happen.
Right, so he
should
said
have
speak
spoken.
to it.
he should have spoken
And
there.
when he
But
gets
what was
to
the
the
failure?
creating-
God tells him, where was the failure? Come on. Think of the psukim. Where was the failure?
He didn't believe in Hashem?
No. Not to that
He didn't
level.
stick to the supernatural ability. In other words, speaking for.
He
Doubted
should have been
him.
great at Kiddush Hashem.
Yeah, maybe.
But where was the breach in a shared reality? There was a breach in a shared reality. What does Moshe Rabbeinu say?
He's greater than Hashem. He's doing
Come
something
on.
different.
What is he? Does he get? Does he get angry at the people?
No,
Yes, he did.
Yes, he does. What does he say? Shimuna Hamorim, right? He gets angry at the people, right? Good. What's the problem with that? Hashem wasn't angry.
Hashem was not angry. Hashem actually said complaint is valid.
Very good. So why is that the catastrophic
Because
sin?
they did not communicate. No, exactly as.
Exactly. And that means what?
The